Welcome to this hour's international news. Let's hear the headlines first. Global virus deaths passes 150,000 as Trump says China hiding toll. Brazil's Bolsonaro wants borders reopened, says worth risk. Trump was too slow in virus response, says Pool. Hundreds of thousands of children could die, said UN. Brazil health minister sacked over failure in tackling coronavirus. And UN chief for rejecting lies says nonsense. These were the headlines. Let's jump into the details news now. World coronavirus deaths surged past 150,000 Friday as US President Donald Trump accused China of continuing to cover up its toll. Even after Beijing revised figures sharply upward for Wuhan, the original epicenter of the global pandemic. COVID-19 fatalities mounted in the United States and hard-hit Western European countries, but fresh data on rising infections and deaths in Africa showed the virus is leaving no continent unscathed in its global march. More than half of humanity, 4.5 million people, were confined to their homes, with evidence mounting of social distancing success is slowing the pandemic. But widespread coronavirus remained over when and now to ease confinement measures to revive the world economy, battered by what the International Monetary Fund has dubbed the Great Lockdown. Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro on Friday called for the reopening of the country's borders as he pushes to restart South Africa's America's largest economy, but conceded he may be blamed if the new coronavirus outbreak worsens as a result. Bolsonaro fired his health minister on Thursday after chasing with him over lockdown measures, which the president argues are overly damaging to the economy and should be rolled back. But the right-wing populist concerned on Friday that it is not up to him to decide whether or not social distancing measures should be relaxed in states and cities after the Supreme Court ruled the governors and mayors are responsible for the decisions. The borders, however, are Bolsonaro's to control. He said on Friday he had discussed the possibility of reopening land borders, particularly those with Uruguay and Paraguay, with Justice Minister Sergio Moro. Opening trade is a risk that I take because gets worse it will fall on my lap, Bolsonaro said at the inauguration event for his new health minister Nelson Th. Nearly two-thirds of Americans say President Donald Trump was too slow in taking major steps to address the threat to the United States from new coronavirus, a poll published on Thursday. Accordingly to the Pew Research Center, 65% said Trump was ready in responding when cases of the COVID-19 illness were first reported in other countries. He initially downplayed the virus and has been keen to end the resulting lockdowns, which have crippled the world's largest economy. The Pew survey was conducted April 7 to 12 among a sample 4,970 American adults. It found that 52% said Trump's public comments on the coronavirus outbreak are making the situation seem better than it really is. 39% said he is presenting the situation about as it really is, while 8% said he is making the situation seem worse than is reality. Trump has been speaking at length during daily press conferences alongside medical experts. On Thursday, he recommended a gradual reopening of the economy a day after saying that data suggests that nationwide we have passed the peak of new cases. Hundreds of thousands of children could die this year due to the global economic downturn sparked by the coronavirus pandemic, and tens of millions more could fall into extreme poverty as a result of the crisis, the United Nations warned on Thursday. The World Body also said in a risk report that nearly 369 million children across 143 countries who normally rely on school meals for a reliable source on daily nutrition have now been forced to look elsewhere. We must act now on each of these threats to our children. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said leaders must do everything in their power to cushion the impact of the pandemic. What started as a public health emergency has snowballed into a formidable test for the global promise to leave no one behind. The new coronavirus, which causes the respiratory illness COVID-19, first emerged in the Chinese city of Wuhan late last year. So far, it has infected more than 2 million people, killing some 138,000 in 213 countries and territories, according to Reuters tally. Brazil's Health Minister Luiz Henrique Mandetta said Thursday he had been sacked by President Jair Bolsonaro after weeks of clashes between the two over the country's response to the coronavirus pandemic. Mandetta made the announcement on Twitter following a meeting with Bolsonaro at the presidential palace in the capital, Brasilia. The relationship had deteriorated since the start of the virus crisis. Mandetta promoted isolation as a tool to concern the spread of the virus, the threat of which Bolsonaro repeatedly claimed was overblown. The announcement had been expected for several days given the number of clashes between the pair and their seemingly incompatible outlooks. Soon after the announcement, people in several towns banged pots and pans to protest the minister's sacking. Even Secretary General Antonio Guterres on Tuesday said with common cases for common sense and facts, they can defeat COVID-19 and build a healthier, more equitable, just, and resilient world. Together, let's reject the lies and nonsense out together, he said a message on COVID-19 and misinformation. The UN chief announced a new United Nations Communications Response Initiative to flood the internet with facts and science while countering the governing source of misinformation, a poison that is putting even more lives at risk. As the world is fighting the deadly COVID-19 pandemic, the most challenging crisis, the UN chief said, they have faced since the Second World War. They are also seeing another epidemic, a dangerous epidemic of misinformation. Around the world, people are scared. They want to know what to do, where to turn for advice, he said, adding that this is a time for science and solidarity.